Live from Long Island, New York, right?
That's where we are. Yes.
How's the weather been over your side? Because I get rain sometimes, then it's like right now it's nice and bright, but then
It's
sometimes it's
beautiful.
rainy.
Yeah, it
It's
was
beautiful.
it was just raining, but now it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's back and forth, back and forth. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to Love, Death, and Taxes. My beautiful cook over here, my beautiful
Hello.
cook is, is Agnes Samusano of nytaxresolutions.com. I'm Ryan O'Neill Williams from ilovebabylon.com. We are going to be talking about the 5 stages of grief today. Agnes is a bereavement counselor at her church. And so we're going to go deep into it. I'm going to ask you this minute. We've all dealt with grief, and sometimes I think everybody deals with it in different ways, but for sure, we're going to delve into as many of the classic stages that most people do right after this. Hey, so Agnes, how's your week? How's your week been this week? What
So far,
happened?
so good.
Yeah,
So
good.
far, so good. Nice and easy.
Yeah, yeah, me too. Got a lot of work done this week. Like I stayed in one place, focused, got a bunch of stuff done, so that's good. Um, we want to talk about grief today, so I'm not going to go to get too crazy, but um, the 5 stages in general are well, Agnes, so have they trained you? Have you already had that kind of what kind of training do you actually go through at your bereavement coach system? Is there something specific that they talk about?
Well, during the training to become a bereavement facilitator, they do we do go over the feelings that we had
Mhm.
when we lost someone close to us to make us, and we dive in quite deep into that to be able to understand how others are my my feel or are feeling or what to expect on the next stage. So yes, there are 5 basic. Because there's so many other feelings,
Right.
but denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance are the 5 stages of grief. When we lose someone, it's first that cannot happen, that didn't happen, and then anger, why did happen, and a lot of times people do um, go through the bargaining stage. God, please, I will stop doing this or I will do that. Just keep that person alive, and then depression, and then an acceptance at the end. Again, it doesn't have to go exactly um, in that
Perfect
succession,
order, right?
in this order. Some people go through different, taking that different way. And of course, there is never like, okay, the first week it's up, so you should go through the now. We do not know. There is no time frame how long a particular person might be going through that particular stage.
Right, right.
It takes from days to weeks to months, sometimes years, before they come out of one stage going to another, if they will do that.
And I feel like different things could affect it, right? So I personally had this experience where I was both mourning my mother and at the same time had a divorce happening. And I felt like that made it difficult to focus in on one or either, and made the period much longer.
Yeah.
Um, does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. You might actually in situation like that express, feel other feelings than just those listed.
Yes.
Um, beside, I can see the anger and betrayal kicking in your
Yes,
situation,
yes, yes,
because like I could see you needing your mother's presence during that difficult time.
yes.
And then like, why did you leave me? That you might have feel beside anger might have been a depression.
Can I tell you what else I felt like when you put all that together and talk? Now that I think about it, well, I don't have to think about it. It's definitely what I felt. I
Yeah.
had guilt like both ways. Like if my mother was going to die anyway, should I have been spending more time with my significant other, with my wife, or vice versa? Since my mother was passing away, should I have spent more time with her and just let, whatever was happening in my relationship just play out the way it needed to be? Because I didn't focus in on one thing, one relationship or the other. Like both relationships kind of ended, if you think about it like that, at the
Yeah.
same time. You know what I mean? So I had guilt. I definitely had guilt. That was one of the weird things. Like, how do you focus in on one thing? And that's not one of the 5 ones here. You got denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. I mean, guilt kind of is one of the, like a sub of depression, right? But it wasn't.
Well, if
Yeah.
you go to other models, that's
Yes.
the word, other models, you will
Yes.
have 7 or 12 different stages depending how deeply you want to dissect. But yeah, with depression, other feelings are kicking in as guilt.
Yeah.
With anger, there might be guilt as well associated with that.
Yes.
It's depending of the situation. It's really depending of the situation going through. So look, there are different different situations in everybody's life. I can imagine that finding out, like I never knew my biological father,
Mhm.
finding out about him, the point he was dead for 25 years,
Oh wow.
I felt anger.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I felt anger for both of my parents. My mom was gone for over a decade. He was gone for 25 years. And I felt anger
Yeah.
towards the men I never met.
Right.
you know,
Right. You're like, now I've never met him. I won't understand him. I don't understand where he's from. Whatever. I can share that one with you. So I
yeah,
have a similar thing. Like, I knew my father went up until about age 3 or 4, and then he and my mother got divorced, and he went on to another family. And I felt like I never really got to meet him because of that. So it's a very similar thing. And I was angry with him when
yeah,
he passed away. Meanwhile, I mean, it wasn't uh, a normal death. It was, it was violent, and so it wasn't his fault that he died. But we had all that time. Oh, and that was the new thing that I started to say to myself: you think you have time, but you don't. I
yeah,
started saying that all the time, and that put me in the mindset where I started saying to myself, you know what? My mother and I are 30 years apart. She passed away at 73. What does that mean? Does that mean I only have 30 years left to live? Women normally outlive men. You know what I mean? What am I, what's going to be happening? So I started thinking about that a lot. So that put in, maybe depression or whatever. But let's talk about denial in specific. Let's go through them, one by one. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Let's talk about denial. Now, why is the knee-jerk reaction, the first reaction, oh my gosh, this didn't happen or it's not happening? Why is denial the first thing you think?
it's really human nature. It's really human nature. Human nature is a bit selfish as well. Like, oh no, 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 that cannot happen to me. That's number one. It's like, oh, the person, I need that person, so they have to stay with me. We
Right.
wish for them to be there for us, to hold on to our needs, attend to our needs. So
Yes.
that's a selfish human nature. Oh, uh,
We both had it happen today. It's all
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. And my husband tried to make sure that it's not going to happen.
This-
Um, but the thing is that, see, my mom was sick for 13 years.
yeah.
We all knew that might happen at any time, and yet when it happened, it was like, oh my goodness,
Mhm.
why? How come that cannot be? She was fighting for so many years. She should be still alive. She should be still fighting. I am not accepting the fact that she's gone. It's like, no, that's gonna happen, and
Yeah.
there's some illness that person is fighting, and although you are accepting, it's like, no, that's not going to happen, because that person's going to be there for me. They're going to be fighting it. It's just not happening, and it's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to lose that person.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, as people, we're like right away. Look, we've got a message from Iwona.
Dziękuję, kochanie.
What does she say?
I'll tell you later. We're not going to interrupt
Oh, no,
the translation.
Okay, so it's so funny that we get these messages and sometimes they're not in English. So for our non-Polish speakers, I don't know what that was. And so it's so funny that I could look at it. If I spoke Polish, then maybe I'd know not to put it up.
Yeah.
I hope she wasn't asking.
No. It was a nice message. It was a very nice message.
Okay, go.
Yeah.
But yes, all right. So that makes sense. You know what I mean? People having trouble believing that the loss has actually occurred and that this is actually happening to me. I remember actually saying, because both things are kind of grieving, right? I actually said to my older kid, no, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to fix this, in complete and total denial of what was going on. So
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, I didn't believe that it was going to happen or that it could possibly happen.
You know what I did when my mom was in a hospital, holding on to the last days of her life?
Yeah.
I just took my passport. I flew in there and went straight to the doctor. I was like, "It's okay. I'm gonna take care of it." And for some reason, my mom thought that I'm gonna take care of it too. I just walked into doctor's office, closed the door, and I said, "How much do you want to make sure that she's okay?" I just went straight forward.
Yeah.
Forget the fact that she was fighting for 13 years. Forget that her oncologist told me exactly what is happening, that this is the last stage of her life. Forget
Yeah.
that.
You thought you were just going to come in and fix it.
Just tell me how much. And
Yeah.
he looked at me and he goes like, hold on to your money. Money's not going to do anything.
Wow.
That was the worst thing that I could ever hear. But, we do act certain way. It's like, okay, we can do this. We can do this.
Yeah.
Now we're going to help, or like, oh, that cannot happen. It's not happening. That cannot be. We cannot lose the loved one.
Yeah.
So.
And then did you see second stage here is anger. Now, did you feel angry when you realized that you couldn't do anything about it, or maybe you had come in at the end of it? Did you feel angry about, once the reality of the whole thing is setting in, did you feel angry about it?
My anger came much later.
Okay.
Right. But I don't think I should
talk about that
in the detail exactly how angry I was.
Okay.
A decade later, over a decade later.
I got angry and would have to go to the basement because I didn't want my kids to see me as angry as I was. I went to the basement and sometimes in the morning would just bellow, like really screaming at the walls, like, and I had a thing down there that I could punch and I would just go at it. It's an interesting thing. Like, I think more men express their grief like this. I have a close family member who we were both survived by our mother, and to this day, the way he handled it was anger. Like it was just effusive. Just everybody was his enemy. It was just there's nothing you could say. He was so angry and was going after people, not physically, but like, I'm gonna sue this guy. I'm gonna get this person. I was like, whoa, calm down. It's not these people's fault. Like, there's no reason for you to go after them like that. But no. I think a lot of men and a lot of women are like, because we're not told we can cry, right? We're told you're not really supposed to cry. So I think men channel their anger in a different way, and that comes out a lot of times as channel their grief in a different way, and a lot of times it comes out as anger.
See, that could be different anger. That could be anger like, okay, the person is in a hospital. That must be the doctor. That didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna sue them. That's it. Or you losing someone and the person had some disagreements with somebody, and that person will show up and cry, and then you feel like cursing them out, like, how dare you, you were not nice to that person, and why you are here now doing this.
Oh
But
man, serious. That was serious. That happened a lot. I took it as, listen, she's passing away, and those people did come. Like, they came out of nowhere, and we're all, because they wanted to clear the air, because they realized. So they came, and I was angry with some of them, but really I was more like just not trusting of them. But that other family member I'm telling you about, oh my God, anger, just intense anger. And what's interesting is, the model says that you can be directed towards yourself, the person who's passing away, other people, or just the world. You know what I mean? And I felt like, yeah, he was angry at the world. It was a whole thing. What about bargaining? What do we know about bargaining? Why would someone even try to bargain with someone who is passing away and or has already passed away? I mean, what's a bargaining stage?
a lot is, in my opinion, is based on fate, bargaining with God. You know, if I will stop doing this or that if you're going to keep that person alive, or if things like that.
Okay. So the reason why I'm asking, because I don't think I felt that. Like, there was no part of me that was like, but maybe it's because I have a different relationship with the
Men upstairs.
Yeah, exactly. Or the man everywhere. I don't even think of him as everywhere. You know what I mean? Him. I don't even think of him as him. I think of the
That's
force.
another show.
Yeah, that's a whole other show. But the thing that creates worlds and what I don't think there's any bargaining with them. If this is what is happening, that's the other thing. Some people think of fate, like this is just what's going to happen, like something you do. But there are some people who think, yes, it can be changed, and prayer can do this and da. But if that's the will, then some people think that that's just the way it goes. So I don't know about the bargaining. What if we could do this, and if only we do that, you know what I mean? Those kinds of statements. I don't know if that could have been done, or what could have been done to prevent the law. I guess that sort of makes sense with the guilt part for me, because I started to feel like, hey, I wonder if I could change this, or could I have changed this if I had done this way or that way instead? That sort of makes sense. Okay.
See, anger, bargaining, it's very close to guilt.
Yeah.
To because there are different situations. If there is somebody very young, or a child, or not someone, or just sudden illness, or a car accident, or things like that, it's different. It's received much different by loved ones than someone who is fighting, battling an illness, or that's to be expected that they're passing because they are their age, appropriate. Appropriate. So they just that's such a wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
I know what I didn't want to say old, but they are in a more in the stages that you can expect to be closer to the end of life.
Yes.
It's taken different way than someone who is very young and vibrant, or very healthy, and something happens unexpectedly.
You're so right that sometimes you can't say that. Who passed away this week? And I was just like, what? That person's like 50 or whatever it was. Someone who was young too, but like a famous person. I was very, here in New York, we have a weather woman. Her name is
Oh
Elise.
yes, 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 yes,
Yeah, and she
yes.
passed away. And I woke up. I watched the news every morning. That's my channel, okay, for news in the morning. And I was just like, where is she? What happened? And they were like, oh, she passed away just suddenly. I was like, so for the family of Elise Finch, exactly. Like she was what, 51, 52?
51, I believe. Yes.
And I was just
It
like,
sounds like Tony Bennett at 96.
well, that makes sense, right? 96. And I know he had deteriorating health for a while. I
Yes.
met him. I was working at a law firm in New York City, and he was in the building coming to Sirius XM
Mhm.
for a deal there, and I met him in the elevator. Nicest guy, like so nice, just shaking hands with everybody. Hi, how are you doing? This is before COVID, right? He's just, hi, how are you doing? But at one point, he had to turn to somebody and ask, do I know this person? And I was like, oh, what's going on there? And then a couple of years later, I heard that he was having difficulty like remembering things, and
Dementia
remembering
or
people.
Alzheimer's, something was going on.
Yeah, he had some sort of Alzheimer's sort of
Yeah.
thing. As a matter of fact, when he did that last album with Lady Gaga says even though he had Alzheimer's, when he started to sing, and his daughter would say this too, whenever he started to sing, it was like he didn't have it because the music just brings the person who he is. He's been doing it for maybe 50 years, right? He's been,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, maybe longer.
That I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess there was some. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we might be grieving right now for both Elise Finch and for Tony Bennett. And if you're a New Yorker and you know those two people, yeah, it's one of those things. So, but yeah, that what if bargaining, trying to figure it out, ask a higher power to reverse the loss or alleviate the pain. It's rough, but it's one of those stages. So after that, when you actually start accepting the thing or very upset about it, then you've got depression, right? You start to recognize that this is happening or has happened. Depression is the next step. So how does that present itself? Well, most people know how it presents itself, but how generally do they talk about it in grief, Agnes?
The loss of another person that was very significant in people's life can manifest different ways.
Right.
Automatically, we having change of life. What was the new what was the normal? Now you have gonna have a new normal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that people won't do. I had last group was actually the group of people that they lost spouses, and it was you know different people are feeling different things. Either that they it's a disappointing thing that they couldn't feeling that they couldn't help the person. They missing everyday things that they did with that person.
Right.
Now they feel lost. They feel that they are not the same people. They recognize themselves, especially in their long-term marriages.
Right.
Now, women saw themselves like if you're married with someone for 40, 50 years, you see yourself as a wife. You're forgetting everything else about yourself.
Right.
You are not the person that you used to be because you had this life almost custom made to yourself. You got up in the morning, you did this, you did that with your husband. You're taking
Right.
care of, and then there's the question: who am I now?
Yeah. exactly. That's all gone, and you may not want to do the same things that you used to do with that person, or maybe you even can't do the same things you used to do with that person, and then that would make you sad if you even thought about doing them. Like, what is your routine anymore, right? If you
Like
were,
when you're in couples, you just like, you know, um, and Anna and Peter. That's always going. Anna and Peter are going together. The Anna and Peter are coming, and Anna and Peter are doing this. Suddenly, it's either only Anna or Peter.
yeah, yeah, that's rough.
It's that's different life. That's
Yeah,
completely different life.
yeah,
And holidays, you have a routine in a
yeah.
marriage.
All the
And
traditions and the
yes,
routines. Hmm.
or if you're losing a child, everything is different. You live for the child. It's a different feeling again. You're missing that person. You're sitting and thinking, my God, depending of what age they, you are thinking about what they lost, what could have been, what
Yeah,
could have happened, what you could celebrate. And the same thing with anyone that a person is losing.
yeah.
You're thinking what would have happened, how that would have happened. I'm thinking about my parents, about our celebration, how happy I imagine how happy they would have been. I was staring at those two chairs in church and thinking like what they feel now. Like I believe in life after death. So I was hoping that they're looking proudly at us. But there are different things. There's also different thing when again anger. Uh, it's intertwined with depression as well if you're finding out something about the person that you were betrayed, because
Mm,
not only good people are passing leaving
yes.
us, and there are, yeah, so you'll be thinking like, oh my God, how could they allow them do this to me? And then certain things, um it did happen. A person find out that the spouse was cheating and they find out after the person was gone. How you deal with that?
Right.
How you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Exactly. Exactly. When you're cleaning up their things, all of a sudden you find a box full of love letters from some, you know, yeah. What do you do? Like the memory of that person. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, right now, if you were married to someone and you've been keeping undergarments or letters or whatever it is, get rid of those
Relevant.
things. So that if you do know that you're going to pass away soon enough, you don't want them finding those things. But yeah, that could definitely put someone into a depression. I mean, what do you do when you find out? Yeah, the memory of the person who everybody always wants to not speak ill of the dead, right? The memory of the person that was there is now being subverted because you find out things. I was lucky. I found out a lot of good things about my parents that I did not know after they died. But yeah, I could see how that would really, really turn you off if you found out a lot of bad
Yeah.
things about them. Yeah, yeah. And the fifth and final stage, acceptance. So um, does this mean that they're completely over everything, or is this more like a hey, let's go through the final stage and tidy things up and tie it up, right? If you're in an acceptance stage.
um there's no such thing as okay, we are done and over with, we are moving on.
Hmm.
Acceptance is yes, that person is no longer with me, and entering different stage of life where I have to learn to live without that person.
Hmm.
But see, the grief is the absence of love. And then we love so much and we have to do something with that love. So we grieve.
Right.
So now we have to utilize that excess of love to do something to keep moving on, to be able to wake up and keep going throughout the day without that person beside us.
Right. Right.
So there are different tools that people can utilize, do something in the memory of the loved one,
Okay.
and but that's another subject. But acceptance, okay, that person, to getting used to that this person is not there, and learning and knowing that you have to learn to go on without them, knowing that it wasn't your fault, knowing that there was nothing that you could do to save them, accepting the fact that it was their time and they're no longer there. And it's not that they're in a better place, because as I said, humans are selfish beings, and we want them to stay, that the better place is with us, not
Right.
anywhere
That,
else. But we cannot, we have no influence
right.
over human nature. We are being brought to this earth, to this life, with full knowledge that one day that will end.
Yeah, it will happen. Yeah.
Each of us have different timing. We never know when that's going to happen. That's why it's so important to remember that we cannot sit and cry over yesterday, because we cannot turn back time.
No.
We can only plan so much for tomorrow, but that's just a promise.
Right.
We, if we only could learn to live
In
today,
the in the present. Yes.
present. Yes, of course, plan for tomorrow as much as we can, but don't be preoccupied that you will lose that precious time that is today.
Right. Right. I believe in setting goals and working towards those goals every single day. You're never going to move forward if you don't. It's interesting that young people, they're just in that mode almost all the time. But a lot of us as adults, we get into these these ruts and don't plan for the next thing. But I'm seeing, if you're accepting that this has now happened, now you're acknowledging like the reality of that loss, and then you're learning to live with it and saying, okay, I'm going to look forward and start to plan new things for the future. Even while you continue to feel that pain, right? Because you're probably still feeling the pain, but it's probably a good thing to be able to say, okay, it's happened. I deal with it. Every now and then, I tell you, every now and then, sometimes I think about like being at her side, or holding her hand in the hospital, or because there's something I could have done, and that makes me sad, but I've accepted, and there's nothing I can do at this point. I have to move forward. So it
Look,
is what it is.
took me 2 years to stop crying when I was passing on a train to work and coming back by the cemetery.
Oofa.
It took me a year to stop reaching out for the phone every weekend to call her, to tell her some. Even sometimes now, it's 15 years since she passed.
Yeah.
But when something exciting happens, I have to call mom. I have to tell her. And you know, but in my situation, I did accept that she's gone. I accept her presence in my life in different form. My
Right.
faith allowed me to do that.
Good.
And life has to keep going on. So myself, I skipped maybe a few steps in those in this model that they give us, 5 stages of grief. Maybe I ran into some much later in life, that was triggered by events in my life. But yes, that's the basic thing: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Not everyone is lucky enough to reach acceptance. Sometimes takes them years to get there.
Yeah.
I know a person who is in a depression mode from day one, and 4 years later still feeling this way. Um,
Mm.
but that particular case, I should say, it's extremely difficult because that person is the bad person. Doesn't matter what you're trying, what tools trying to teach to that person. It's like, yes, but that's not gonna work for me. Even fine.
Okay.
So
All right.
there are different situations that. I saw in my lifetime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that completely makes sense. Everybody's going to handle it different. I can see getting to acceptance, but then every now and then still feeling a little bit of anger, going back towards that, and then going back towards depression a little bit, getting caught back and forth every day, feeling one way, but then get a tinge of the other thing. So I get it. All right, so I think that's an amazing explanation of those. I mean, if you are feeling any of those emotions, you feel as though you're having a little bit difficulty, there are agencies that help with that. I think there's a brand new number specifically for depression and or um, suicide. That it is in New York right now. Let me double check and see if I find that.
Mhm.
But for sure, that is something. If you feel like you're stuck and you're not getting over, you should try to reach out for help. I know sometimes it's hard to do that. It's just it's hard for people to reach out to other people and get help because you feel like it could be a problem. Yeah, the number is 988. So if you have depression and or suicide, you can actually call feelings of depression or suicide, and they're getting really too difficult for you to deal with. That's the number. It's 988 here in New York. I think it's a new mental health outline specifically to deal with that. So that once you call that number, they know what you're dealing with. You're not doing 911. You're not calling 311 to figure out what's going on with it. They know exactly who you are and what you're dealing with. And there, specialized attention is given to you. 988 is that number. And so, ladies and gents, I think that's going to be it for this week. I had a good time. Agnes, was this good? I feel like this was good. This was like a good. We haven't gone through and parsed through something this specific in in this way for this particular project before, this particular topic before. Am I right? I don't think we've done this. The five
No, we did mention before, but we didn't go through the details.
with depth of it. Yeah. So I think that this is a good. I think this is a great episode. This might be one of those keystone episodes that people can come back and look at. So what would you, if you tell someone who is stuck somewhere, exactly what do you think you should say to them? I mean, as a grief counselor, what advice would you have for them?
Oh, I really believe that bereavement groups are just lifesavers because other people, it's not exactly the facilitator that is helping as much as people finding themselves in a surroundings in a group where others can understand exactly what they're going through. That's very, very important. I remember when my mom passed, I was sharing my experiences with everyone who was willing to listen, but not exactly knowing. I was blessed with a lot of friends that they understand that, okay, she needs to talk. But thank God that some of them went through the loss that I went, some of them they didn't. So they just let me talk. But when you are in a group of people that they exactly understand what happened to you, they can give you full understanding. When a parent passes, the remaining spouse, it's not going to get full understanding from children because the children only know that person in a role of a parent, and the spouse is losing much more than a partner, just a partner in life. It's the love, it's the affection, which you are not going to sit down and discuss that with your children because they're not going to understand that. Um, Ryan can hear you.
Right. And honestly, sometimes people think that is inappropriate. Like, I'm not going to talk to them. I
No,
don't think I
it's
would.
not.
Yeah,
Absolutely not.
yeah. Some people would think that. I'm just saying they would think it, not necessarily that it's true, but that's how they would think. Like, I'm
Well,
not going to talk to them about my
do
feelings.
you want to discuss your love life with your children? I don't think
Yeah,
so.
and that would be difficult. Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Had I've had an accident happen before. People come into the room. Like, yeah, that's not what you want. It's not.
You don't want that either. Yes. So,
No,
you know,
it's not what is desired.
yeah.
But yeah, exactly. Very well. All right. So, ladies and gents, I think that's going to be it for us today. If you need tax resolution help, I want you to check out nytaxresolutions.com. That is Agnes's website, where she helps people who are in real tax issues, real tax problems, get out of those deep, deep problems. If you got the IRS knocking on your door on a regular basis, you're getting wage garnishments or whatever because you haven't paid your taxes in a little bit. She is the person. She never figures out. Never seen a tax problem that she can't. Yes.
Yes.
That's how I put it. If you want to send us some information or you want to suggest a topic, send that to mailbag@lovedeathandtaxes.com. And also, if you have some sort of comment about what you actually heard on the show and you'd like to tell us about that, you also send that to mailbag at lovedeathandtaxes.com. So until next week, I'd like to say thank you so much for, again, a wonderful show, Agnes. Thank you so much for your advice.
Thank you, Ryan.
All right. And so, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.